I'm at the Frontenac Museum here in Union Springs, and you're watching Porch Talk. So I'm standing here talking now with Pat Kimber and Linda Zach. They are members of the Board of Trustees. So girls, tell us about your volunteer services here. How did you get started working at the Historical Society?
I think I got started years ago when the original building was down on, well, what is now Foundry Street, where the original village offices, which was the old creamery.
I didn't even realize that this is not the original Historical Society here in Union Springs.
That was right next door to my house.
Okay.
So I could just go over.
That's convenient.
It was. And that's probably how I first got started. Okay. I've been a history buff all my life anyway, but that's how I got started, interested in the Historical Society here in town.
And you're not a native from Union Springs.
No, I'm not.
So was there somebody in town who was like, hey, Linda, you should, being so involved in history, your interests, you should join the society here?
Probably, although I don't think she actually contacted me, but probably Nancy Downey was. Okay. She was one of the original founders of the group, and I was friends with her, and she probably got me interested initially. I did not act on that interest for a number of years. And probably it's been about 10 years, maybe close to 10 or 12 years since I've been active here now.
Great. How about you, Pat?
Well, we moved here in the early 1990s, and we moved into a house that was built, we thought, at 1820. And we were interested in learning more about the history of our home. So I came to the museum and used the resources here to help in the research of the house, which we eventually was placed on the National Registry. And I just love the people. And I love the community, and it seemed to combine with my interest in history very nicely.
Were you both history majors?
No, I'm a registered nurse.
Oh, okay.
And I'm retired from insurance.
Oh. Okay, that's neat. Yeah, I bet. Were you able to find some cool things you never knew about your house here?
Absolutely.
Pictures?
Lots of genealogy. And
ghost stories?
No ghosts.
No. Okay, so we're going to walk through, and you can tell us a little about the history here. We've already done a little bit of a walk through, me and Steve, and it's got some really nifty items here in different areas of the museum. There's special rooms dedicated to, different categories. So let's talk about some of your favorite items here, and we'll move along. We are standing in front of a massive quilt that looks like various people possibly put this thing together. What is this?
This quilt was made by the women of the community to celebrate Union Springs' participation in the nation's bicentennial in 1976. And an offshoot of that celebration and the efforts of that committee was the founding of this museum. We were founded, as I said, in 1976. And we assumed our residence in this building in 1994.
Okay.
And this building was originally the First Presbyterian Church of Springport. It was built on land given to the community and to the Presbyterian Church by George Howland, who was a sea captain out of New Bedford. And you wonder what would bring a sea captain to from New Bedford to Union Springs. Well, he was visiting in the area and he liked what he saw. He saw the beautiful lakes, the hills, the natural resources, and a wonderful pond, which is at the north end of our village, and the pond never freezes over. So Mr. Howland, in his infinite wisdom, built a wonderful stone mill, which you'll see as you come into the village of Union Springs, on a pond that operates year-round. So it was one of the few mills in the area that operated around the clock, around the year.
Great.
So he sent his 2 sons up in Union Springs in residence to manage his business interests, but he never actually lived here. But he left us with a wonderful legacy.
Yeah, no kidding. That's great. And the various women, are they still volunteers
well,
here?
Sadly, most of these women have left us, but they've left a wonderful tribute to their commitment to the village and to keeping history alive in Union Springs.
How many volunteers would you say are part of the Historical Society here?
All total, we have in excess of 100 volunteers. We have a wonderful team of docents, our board members. We have community members who help at Christmas time and throughout our programs with the schools. We're very proud of our partnership with the local school district. So I'd say about 100 or more.
That's neat. Are they mixed ages?
All different ages. We even have children. When we redid this room several years ago, our ceiling was falling down, and we needed to put in a new ceiling, and we wanted to keep the original profile from the 1840 structure. And of course, it was a very, very expensive proposition. This community rallied to help us raise the funds, and in 3 months, we had raised the money necessary to repair, not only repair it, but to completely remove it and restore the ceiling to the way it originally was. And the school children helped with that.
Yeah, it's really great that the town saw the need to put the money into their history here. Like that's really profound to see that in your townies. So way to go, Union Springs. Neat. All right, well, let's move on. Let's check out another favorite of yours. All right, I see a really pretty dollhouse. I'm getting really excited and itchy fingers because I grew up playing with dollhouses, and I kind of want to grab some dolls and play right now, but I know I can't because this is a museum piece. So tell me about this.
This dollhouse was built by a lady named Dorothy Heller Webster, who lived outside the village. She was in her 70s and 80s when she built most of this.
She built this herself?
Built it herself.
That is really neat.
She had some minor help, but she essentially did the work herself. And a friend of ours, mutual friend, did the wiring in the house. And when I was president, I had it rewired to some extent, just so we could get electricity back in, because that had kind of gone by the wayside. She made a good deal of the furniture. Kits, furniture comes in kits.
Okay.
That you glue together and stain or paint.
Show that. Okay, good.
Quite a few items I have bought and added to them that are more modernly made, but in the Victorian era concept. So I stayed with that Victorian era concept along the way. They get changed because there's extra furniture for it. She had a lot of furniture. This little building down on the end, down here, yes. We think she started that out as a general store because of the items that I found with it. It has been a general store up until about a year and a half ago, when I basically take care of it. So I made it into a dressmaker's shop for a while. That just changes the concept and the.
And it's probably fun to do.
It's fun too.
Do you like playing with dolls too, Linda?
Yes, I do.
She has a little fetish.
I have very large hands, and it's been very difficult for me to.
You do not have large hands, by the way.
Yes, I do. We repapered
Oh, nice.
much of it.
That's the fun part to me. The decorating part.
We repapered. We had
Only dollhouse people would understand what we're talking about right now. How we're getting so excited about
some water stains on some of the wallpaper and stuff. So we repapered some of it.
So my question to you about things like this, when you repaper, when you have to, repair flooring and these museum pieces, like a dollhouse, don't you have to use the paper that comes from that era, right?
Yes, if you want to stay true to the.
Yeah. I mean, where do you find wallpaper like that?
You find that in dollhouse stores. There are such things as dollhouse stores. Yeah. There used to be one in Auburn, and one of the owners was a man who wired the dollhouse. They have since gone out of business, unfortunately. But she had, stacks of different kinds of flooring, wallpaper.
From the 1900s or early 1900s, 1800s?
Reproductions.
Like how far back can you go?
You can go back to colonial if you want to, and come right up to modern times.
Like wallpaper and flooring.
Some of the wallpaper we used is actually wrapping paper.
Okay.
Because if you can pick up the design, the Victorian design, and you know anything about the design and stuff, you can pick wallpaper or wrapping paper up and use it.
Very neat. Okay, cool. So, Linda, I noticed that there's other unusual items in this room, but they're not going to be here for long.
That's true, except for some permanent items in this room, like the dollhouse, the printing press, and the printing desk. This room, we rotate our exhibits in about every 3 years.
Okay, so every 3 years you have a different exhibit come in, and how long? Oh, it stays there for 3 years.
Stays there 2 to 3 years, and then we rotate it around to something else.
Okay, neat. How do you get your exhibits in?
Donations from
Various other museums that you contact.
no, sometimes, but mostly from the local community who have donated all these wonderful items. Cool. It's really, terrific. Our wedding gowns are all donated from community members.
That's your current exhibit.
Yes, and many of them are handed down from family to family, so there's 2 or 3 generations of wedding gowns exhibited here.
Cool. That's so neat.
That is so neat.
Yeah.
It really is. And these will come down this winter, and we'll put something else up. And we rotate. The cabinet down there is rotated.
Small
and
items.
yes. And the corner exhibit with the farm implements usually gets rotated as well.
Cool. All right. We are now in the war room. Tell us about this room and some of the items that people can find here as they're walking through.
Well, this room is mainly dedicated to our veterans from starting with the Civil War. We kind of lack some really later wars. Okay. Hopefully just get, items in that we can build on this some more. The Civil War collection in back of us was a major donation of the Marco Heck family. And they lived in 2 houses down the street. And in her attic, she found a pillowcase with a whole bunch of letters in them. And they were written by a Dr. Benjamin Fordyce, who was a surgeon, to his wife. And she edited it, put it in a book called Echoes. And along with that, she found a lot of memorabilia of Dr. Fordyce's as well.
From a surgeon from the Civil War.
And he lived here in Union Springs. He also lived in a Principio too at one time. But,
Wow.
that was his saddle. That's called a McClellan saddle.
Okay. Wow. And you can find, you said, the collection of his letters in a book that she had published. Very neat. And there's some other items in here.
This is the book she edited her letters.
Okay. And this you can find on Amazon or if anyone was interested.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
We have them for sale here in the.
So you can get them right here. Great.
We have his uniform. We have other uniforms as well.
Okay.
He was a surgeon, so he had a green sash on his uniform. The sashes that the officers wore indicated what branch of the service they were in.
Okay.
Cavalry was yellow. Artillery was red. Infantry was blue. Or maroon.
Do Civil War reenactments?
I used to.
You used to?
I did.
What role did you play?
I was a nurse. I set up a field hospital.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I have quite a collection of medical memorabilia too.
From your grandparents or great
just stuff I've collected.
Yeah. Okay.
But antique stores, reproductions of various items, and like I said, I set up a field hospital and did that at reenactments.
Are any of your items that a nurse would use from Civil War in this room?
No.
No?
They're
Okay.
Not. They're not right now. They've been up here before.
And you have
But-
World War I items?
We have World War I items in this corner, and there, and World War II on the other side of the room.
Yeah, I see a lot of uniforms. I'm really intrigued by the items that you have over here in this corner. Can you tell us a little about them?
Yeah, these are World War I items. The posters you see were very popular back during the World War I.
Propaganda.
Yes. And they were actually trying to encourage men to enlist in the Army. Right. We do see ads on TV and some modern ones now. We don't see quite.
Is this how you try to get people to join the society? I am telling you.
Yeah. I am telling you, enlist in the Army of war savers to back up my fighters, my army of fighters.
Right. Cool.
On the table, or above the table first, we have some uniforms. On the table, we have a number of items: helmet, gas mask.
And these were all donated by locals.
These were all donated by locals. First aid kit.
Does it have stuff still in it? Like Band-Aids or whatever?
I don't know.
Have you ever opened it? I'm just kind of curious. I like things like that. Steve had something like
No,
this he
it's
found in
shut.
his car, and all the items were still in it, but that was from World War II.
They
But-
might be, but
Isn't
they're
that cool?
sealed in it.
Oh, it's
Kinda
sealed. We should pop that baby open. Okay, that's cool. And there's a story of the war. What is this?
That is an old book that was written about World War One.
Okay.
I've never opened it, and I presume it has a lot of photographs in it.
Wow. You've never opened it?
I've never opened
Aren't
it.
you curious? You've been here for 15
Well,
years?
I've opened a lot of other books, but not to open that one, I guess.
Okay. But this is a very special
This
room.
is a very special room.
Yeah, I'm sure because it's got there's a lot of honor in here.
A lot of honor.
And it's all locally donated family members from this town. These were their relatives
Local
here.
family,
Yep.
our local people who served in the Army or Air Force during the wars.
The Navy.
The Navy, too. Yep.
And this is the World War II section of the room. Can you tell us about these items?
Yes, they have also been donated by veterans. We had two local men, Bruce and Gene Carr, who were both pilots, and we have a great deal of their equipment that's been donated here. In formal uniform, jumpsuit, many pictures of them. In fact, when I first moved here, Gene was still flying a lot. He used to buzz the village. Did you were here, Pat, when he did that? First time he did it, I was scared to death because he flew so low, he just buzzed the village.
Oh, my goodness.
And so much of this material has come from the Carr family and various other members that were had family members in World War II.
There's some very
rationing
interesting
books.
items in here.
Some Nazi souvenirs,
Yeah.
a picture of the plane spotters that we had plane spotters here in the village that were volunteers, and they worked every day trying to spotted planes that might be flying over, foreign planes.
This is the Native American lake room that we're standing in. I see some Native American artifacts, and I also see this really crazy big anchor. What's going on?
Well, this anchor is not actually original to the event that this exhibit represents, but in 1907 there was a greatest tragedy on the Finger Lakes, and that was the burning of the steamship Frontenac, which occurred just south of Union Springs. And unfortunately, several people lost their lives. I believe it was 8 or 9 that lost their lives. And these are some artifacts that have been salvaged from the Frontenac.
Wow.
So in addition to featuring other items from the lake, such as information about our steamship schedules, as there was a great deal of activity on this lake and on all the Finger Lakes with steamships and excursions coming to places like Finger Lakes like Union Springs to take the waters. We also feature Charles Courtney's shell, which is located here. Charles was a famous rowing coach at Cornell, held many world records. And we also have a wonderful display that's on loan to us of Native American artifacts. And the exhibit has been prepared by an intern from Ithaca College. And we do have interns from both Wells and Ithaca College that periodically will work on exhibits for us.
Are these all local Native American
Most of them are.
items?
Most of them are. And the story is told, as you can see with the illustrations and the information on the wall.
Wow. And these were just brought in by...
The family of Edgar
Families.
Smith, who
Okay.
was a local in Union Springs, donated, or loaned these items, I should say, to the museum.
There are a lot of items.
There's a lot more in storage, too. But we did have a famous Native American artifact hunter in Union Springs, William Wallace, and his cap is shown in the corner. That cap, he would say he often said he woke up in the morning and had visions of where artifacts were located. He put on his cap and he'd go out in search of them and unearth many
His
artifacts.
psychic cap.
Yes, and many of his items are over in Letchworth Museum at Letchworth State Park.
Okay. So if you want to be psychic, you just steal the cap,
Off you go.
put it on, and you're on your way to finding artifacts. That's great. Have you ever tried it?
No, it's a little fragile.
It was so much fun, girls, having you here, walking us through the rooms. We didn't go through all of them. There's so much more here to see. How can people find out about your hours and when they can get a tour here?
Well, we're open from mid-May through mid-October on Saturdays and Sundays, or by appointment anytime. And an appointment can be made by either calling the museum or contacting us through our Facebook page or through our website, frontenacmuseum.org.
Okay.
We are a chartered museum, and we are representing not only Union Springs, but also the towns of Ledyard, Springport, Aurelius, and Fleming. So we're always welcoming volunteers and any donations that reflect those areas.
Great. And what would you say about the local genealogy here? Because I know you have a room just for that.
We have a room dedicated to genealogy, basically the genealogy of local families. So if anyone is interested in finding out about their ancestors or people who have lived in Union Springs and you want to find out about their genealogy, where they're buried, we have all kinds of that information here at the museum.
Right, okay. Or why there's that ghost in your house. You can be like, who is that?
Never saw the ghost in the house.
Oh, that's great.
We're still looking.
All right, well, thanks, girls, and keep up the good work here.
Thank you.
Thank you.